Welcome to the Storytelling with Data podcast, where listeners around the world learn to be better storytellers and presenters. We'll cover a wide range of topics that will help you effectively show and tell your data stories. So get ready to separate yourself from the mess of 3D exploding pie charts and deliver knockout presentations. And with that, here's Alex.
Okay, Alli, so you are a data storyteller, but do you consider yourself a designer?
Back in 2017 or so, when I first started creating charts, I would not dare call myself a designer. I thought that was reserved for the graphic designers, the people who majored in it. It was their job. What about you, Alex? Would you call yourself a designer?
Probably not. And it has a lot to do with what you just said there. I can't help but think of the word designer as a synonym for the word artist. So somebody that is working fully in an artistic role, they're using their imagination to produce something beautiful and it evokes feelings. That's just not what I do. But I imagine we're not alone. And a lot of people carry this definition or this stereotype where they think of designers as those illustrators, those creative people, and those people with perfect taste. But that's just not me. And I doubt that is how many of the people we work with would identify either.
I hope after listening to this conversation, you feel like I don't need to be an artist to be a good designer. Those are two separate things. And you also don't need natural talent. Sure, you probably do have a natural talent for some particular thing, but good design in general, it's a skill that's built through observation, constant creation, and feedback.
So what I would call myself instead is somebody who uses design. I've learned the basic rules and I know how to apply them to graphs, to slides, to handouts, to make something that looks professional. And that distinction matters quite a bit because when it comes to business communication, function actually matters a lot more than form does. You don't need this innate talent to go from an amateur-looking slide to something that looks polished. So this is a skill. It's not an art form. In the same way that if I were to make dinner at home and my husband tells me it was great, it doesn't turn me into a chef, but I can certainly continue to become a better cook.
So a designer is someone making these intentional decisions to help someone do or understand something better.
Right. And when you think about it, anyone who's ever made a chart before has made a design decision or two, whether it's choosing colors, picking your font, your text size, maybe it's deciding what you're going to remove. Or if you do nothing, believe it or not, that's a decision within itself.
Yeah, the decision to not make a decision. So if you are a designer and being a designer is about making design decisions, then in order to be a better designer, it's really just someone making better decisions. And for that, I think better would be defined as the audience understands the insight from the chart either more quickly or maybe it's more engaging or more memorable.
Sure. And there are a lot of decisions somebody would have to make that insight more memorable. So how do you know what good looks like? It feels like some people are just naturally able to decide what good is.
Some people do have that instinct, that natural visual instinct, which is probably another reason why we think, oh, I'm not a designer because I don't have that natural instinct. But if you think about other fields like music, some people have that very natural ability to hear a note and then find the note on the piano, teach themselves songs and all those amazing things. But I did band in high school and I don't have that natural ability, but I was able to practice and learn and play music very well as well.
As soon as you started saying music, I couldn't help but think of dance. Some people naturally can find the beat and some people not.
Yes, you have to be taught. Where is the beat?
But everyone can learn a basic two-step, a basic salsa. They can learn how to Dougie, right? It's literally in the song, Alli, teach me how to Dougie. So we can all learn to be better. And design really does work the same way. You can have a natural eye for good design, or you can just learn to develop it over time and figure out what works. So Cole, our founder, recently posted a blog post, which we'll link in the show notes, and it talks about all of these tiny design decisions that we can make. And ones that you might not realize you're even making as a designer. Things like hierarchy, spacing, alignment, color, typography.
Yeah, and I bet, Alex, there was something that you were naturally good at when it came to design.
Yeah, looking back, one thing that's really carried me is just my ability to always design for other people. And I think it actually might be rooted in the fact that I don't consider myself to be a designer. So I'm not really precious about putting my own style within things. And I've always just been able to think about what the other person wants and designing for them. So I can actually remember creating or recreating a deck for this construction and manufacturing client that we had at Storytelling with Data. And this client just had a really bold, blocky design, which meant that if I followed the normal storytelling with data approach of minimalist and just using one single color and light lines, it wouldn't fit. Had to throw everything pretty much out the window. And I ended up using a light gray background, dark colors, thicker fonts. When I went to emphasize text, I didn't just bold it, but I had this big block of highlighted text. And the remake was very well received. And I just know deep down that I could have done the exact same graph in a different design and it wouldn't have been received. So it was really about meeting the audience's expectations. And so while that's not necessarily a design skill that I innately have, being able to think about the audience is an important part of design. What about you?
Yeah, you separated yourself from the work and you were really thinking about your audience. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And I think that happens a lot where someone designs for themselves and feels like design, oh, that means I'm putting my style in there. And then it misses the mark because you were thinking more about style than function. So I think that's a very strong natural ability. For me, my ability for composition was something I had a natural inclination for, like arranging things on a page to create some sort of movement or emotion. Before I even kind of knew what that was, I just knew if I looked at something, I was feel like, that feels static. I just had the inclination to try things out until I felt like it was looking more emotive. And I didn't have the word composition. I didn't have that kind of vocabulary, but that came later.
Yeah, and I think that's true for everyone. You develop this shared language of how to talk about design. It might actually be helpful if we share how we developed that language or that vocabulary, especially since both of us are self-taught.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Hey, quick break to let you know that we have a virtual workshop coming up on Thursday, August 20th, 2026. It's an interactive 4-hour session where you'll learn a proven framework to improve your data storytelling. This is our popular foundational workshop, and we only offer a few public workshops each year, so grab your virtual seat today. You can use code PODCAST10 for 10% off your registration. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Okay, back to the show.
So when I first got serious about improving my data viz skills, I could tell that there were a lot of decisions happening that I didn't know were happening. And just going with the defaults, it was not working. So what I did was I actually started cutting out the charts from the Washington Post. So I was getting it delivered every Sunday, and I would just go through, just cut out all the charts, tape them in my notebook, and then I took a red Sharpie, and then I would actually circle and trace every little thing. I would draw a line to show that everything was aligned on the left. It's just so I could see it. If you mark it up, it forces yourself to see it. Oh, the title, the subtitle, the labels on the y-axis, they all are perfectly aligned to the left. Okay, I see that now. I would circle an annotation and be like, okay, this annotation is in bold and it's the same size of the axis labels. So every little thing that I could think of on every single chart, it really helped me start seeing all these little design decisions that were happening. What about you, Alex? How did you start learning the language of design?
I can't say my approach was as beautiful as what you just described. But before I share, I'm actually curious. What was the significance of the red Sharpie?
Oh, really just so it would pop.
Red on black and gray.
Yes, exactly. It looked kind of cool. And I think I still have pictures of it. I'll put it in the show notes if anyone's interested to see how poppy it looked.
I'm interested. So I started really without a plan, but I suppose it was books and articles that I would come across, which probably, along with newspapers, sounds a little old school in today's world of YouTube University and learning new skills. But For me, the first time that I focused on design was probably after reading Stephanie Evergreen's Presenting Data book. I think this came out over 10, 15 years ago, but she does a really good job in that book of explaining the basic design rules applied to slides and applied to graphs. So things like the rule of thirds is something I'd never heard of, or alignment and how you can use that to strategically guide somebody's eye, or the importance of using color consistently to create a cohesive deck. Right? These were all words that I didn't think of to use when I was describing graphs in slides, but as I learned about them, that's probably how I most developed the language. And then from there, I really just took any opportunity that I had to practice. So whether it was a dashboard, a slide, a graph that I was asked to build at work, I would try to apply one of the rules that I picked up from my reading. And so again, it wasn't very structured, but I was curious, I was determined, and I knew that the only way to get better was to try doing things and see how it worked out. And I should also say, similar to your idea of clipping things out and saving them, I was always saving work, something that inspired me from my own work that I saw somebody else would do. And then I would have this nice bank of inspiration that I could always go back to whenever a specific project surfaced that I could use a given technique. And what I'm describing here actually reminds me of a technique that you coined in your book, ChartSpark, called X-ray. I just didn't have the language for it then.
I developed the X-ray technique because I was doing just that. I was like collecting things, but I wasn't learning from them. So I created X-ray, which is an acronym. So X stands for excited. So you see some inspirational chart and you think about specifically, okay, what got me excited about this? Was it the color palette? Was it the catchy title? Whatever. It doesn't have to be anything particular, just what drew your attention to this chart. Then R is rules. Where is this chart following best practices? So you can be looking at the axes. Okay, the intervals are consistent. The axes are labeled, those kinds of things. Be looking for good rule following. And then A is anarchy. How did they break the rules? I mean, we talk about don't be doing exploding 3D pie charts, but what if someone did it and it worked for a particular reason, right? I'm sure there's a very small 0.1% chance or scenario where that would actually work and be helpful. So that's anarchy. Maybe someone's going against the typical rules, but it worked for some particular reason. And then Y is you. How would you use any of those things that you saw from the X, R, and A? How would you use it in your work next? So maybe you saw, oh, in this particular case, if I am trying to show composition over time, using this area chart, stacked area chart works really well, something like that. And just by thinking about it, you're almost planting a seed in your mind so that when you come to that certain situation, you can grab it and use it more readily. So having inspiration, X-raying it, it's a really good first step. But like you said, you have to start creating and actually trying out these decisions.
Yeah, and when you're first starting out, I get it. It can be hard to want to take that next step and actually create something, especially when a lot of your work is feeling very beginner, very amateur.
Yeah, I actually heard a story about the author Hunter S. Thompson. He actually used to type out a few pages from The Great Gatsby, he says, just so he could get a feel for what it was like to write a fantastic book. And it reminded me that it's great to practice these things, but you could start by just copying charts, just creating one that's already out there, just recreate it.
Oh, absolutely. Copying is such an underrated step. It's one thing to look at a chart and say, yeah, that alignment's good, or they use color intentionally there. But when you recreate it, it's totally different because now you have to make those same decisions yourself. You have to decide, where does that label go? How much space is going to be between those bars? Does the color actually carry the weight with this particular data set? And plus, there's this practical side of when you're practicing and copying people's work, you're learning how to actually manipulate your visualization tool to pull it off. So you're not only building the design skills, but also the technical skills to be the designer that you want to be.
That is actually how I learned Tableau. Oh, I need to move this axis label over here, but I don't know how to do that. So I'm going to go to YouTube real quick, watch that. Okay, now I can get back to work. It helps you know what you don't know. And one thing I want to emphasize is that there is no shame in copying someone else's chart for practice. You're not copying their work to publish it and pass it off as your own. Absolutely not. You're copying it so that you can understand the decisions that the original designer made. I like to think about it like going back to music. You learn other people's songs, right? Before you start writing your own. Or maybe you are a chef and you use someone else's recipe and then you start developing your own. It's really the same thing. It helps you develop the sense for, okay, this works and this is why it works. And then you can start making those same decisions.
I love that. I always tell people, if you're going to make a decision, just be able to articulate why you've done something. And once you do that, you build that language, but you also really reinforce your own style and when certain design techniques should be implemented or not. So in terms of further refining these skills, I'm also going to point out feedback, right? Feedback becomes really important when you're trying to improve your ability to design. I can remember when I first joined Storytelling with Data, I'd even start to notice patterns in the feedback. I'd get the same comment over and over again. And one of the ones that stands out to me is around gray. So I learned early on when I was learning about data visualization, the importance of using gray. Someone even said once to me that the number one color you should use as a data visualization designer is gray. And so I just took that and ran with it. I'd throw gray into everything, but I never really thought about the shade of gray that I was using. And so the feedback that I would often get is, this gray is too light, we can't read this, or this gray is too dark, I can't see the contrast with the other colors. And it made me start to step back and think about, there's a little more to this. Let me dig deeper. And that's when I learned about things like contrast and visual hierarchy and accessibility. And I encourage you, when you get feedback, just to really dig deeper and try to understand the reason behind why somebody is suggesting something or why they like something, because that's going to give you a feel for what is that person's personal style, or it might help you realize a gap in your own knowledge, especially if you are self-teaching yourself.
Yeah, and everybody sees things differently. So if someone is seeing something and interpreting it a certain way, it's not wrong. That's just how they see it. That's their reality, right? So it pays to listen to them and say, okay, they're perceiving it this way. How could I alter this in some way so that we are both seeing it how I'm intending it? So feedback is really helpful. It's so helpful to have a couple of friends or a colleague. You can say, hey, can you help me with these colors, or maybe the alignment or composition or something, or just say, can you help me make this look better? Sometimes you feel like something is just off, but you don't know what is wrong with it. So asking someone else for feedback, they can give you a couple pointers, and over time, you'll start to see those things yourself. And there are still times you might get stuck, but you can start to improve your skills naturally.
Yeah, that's a great idea, to just reach out to people that you work with that maybe you don't know as well, but they have those skills. I'm also a big fan of leveraging the people that aren't as close to work. My husband is one of my go-to feedback deliverers, and he hates graphs, but he can give some really good feedback when something doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And if you want maybe a little bit more structure around the feedback, I will just mention that a big bonus of our Storytelling with Data community is that there is a section where you can solicit feedback. So you can upload a slide, you can ping the community and say, hey, something's off, I need help. And you'll also probably get some insight from folks on the team as we're regularly checking that out.
So before we wrap up, I thought it would be nice to each share one design habit that we felt really made a difference in our work. For anybody who thinks, I'm not a designer, but they are willing to learn, they want to learn, what's something that really helped us level up. I, of course, would say go buy a newspaper and cut everything out and start marking it up with a Sharpie. And one thing I noticed when I did that for the first time was how much they used space to group things together. So the things that go together should have less space between them than things that don't go together. There should be like more space in between those things, which sounds so obvious. But I guarantee you, if you look over your work or you're really paying attention to it in your next business presentation, someone else's slides, you would be surprised by how many times we don't do that. So one really easy thing, easy quick fix you could start doing today, look over your chart, your slide, and anything that goes together. So maybe you have a chart and then also some text that goes with that chart, make sure those are closer together than anything else you have on your slide. So that's a space tip. Not outer space, a graphic design space tip.
My tip would be to edit. And maybe another word for it is just delete, remove, space things out. I think it's so natural for people to want to share more information than they need or more data than is necessary to get your point across. And so when everything feels important, it's very hard to let go of things. And what ends up happening is we often create dense slides and dense graphs. And so if there's one practice I can highly recommend is once you think you're done, just take a step back and ask yourself, is there anything I can remove without taking away from the message? Or follow the sort of single purpose rule where every slide supports one single idea or every graph supports a single insight. And if you find yourself with 3-4 insights or points that you're trying to get across with any one thing, that's probably a sign that you need to edit. You need to ask yourself what's most important, maybe split things across, or just delete certain things that are not critical. So edit, 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 delete. I do this constantly. I have to be told to do this constantly. It is normal. But if we're aware of it, hopefully we can counteract some of it.
I hope after listening to this conversation, you feel like now I don't need to be an artist to be a good designer. Those are two separate things. And you also don't need natural talent. Sure, you probably do have a natural talent for some particular thing, but good design in general, it's a skill that's built through observation, constant creation, and feedback. So every chart you see, every slide, every poster, every menu or website you go to, that is a chance to train your design eye.
Yes, there's no short of inspiration and material to use there. And if I could just quickly sum up the progression of how to improve your design skills, start by noticing great design, study that great design, then push yourself to recreate it, start creating then your own designs, and as Alli mentioned, get feedback, rinse, and repeat. Do this cycle over and over again, and you'll be amazed at what you can create.